This is section 1.1, expressions and formulas. First, we need to discuss the order of operations. You have PEMDAS, which is parentheses, exponents, multiply and divide from left to right, and add and subtract from left to right. Example 1, we want to evaluate m plus parentheses p minus 1 quantity squared if m is 3 and p is negative 4. First, we're going to plug in 3 for m, and p, where we see p, we're going to plug in negative 4. Make sure you keep your parentheses. Order of operations says we do inside the parentheses first. So inside the parentheses, negative 4 and a negative 1 is a negative 5. And negative 5 squared. Then the next order of operations is we do our exponents. Negative 5 squared is 25. So it's 3 plus 25, which is 28. Okay, example B, m plus 3 minus q squared. We're going to plug in m is 12 and q is negative 1. Inside the parentheses, when we have 3 minus a negative 1, we change that to plus a positive 1. Order of operations is we do inside the parentheses, so 3 plus 1 is 4. Square 4, so that's 12 plus 16, which is 28. Example 1C. We're going to plug in 12 for m and negative 1 for q. And anytime you're multiplying or dividing by a negative, you need to enclose it in parentheses so that it doesn't look like you're subtracting 1. You're not subtracting 1, you're multiplying by a negative 1. So you should always enclose that in parentheses. Order of operations says we're going to divide up. We're going to add, multiply or divide from left to right. Now, would we get the same thing right here if we divided 12 divided by 2 is 6, and 6 times negative 1 plus 4? We get negative 6 plus 4. And yes, we get the same thing. And the only reason why we got the same thing is because that was a 1. Technically, we should have gone this route. We should multiply and divide from left to right. So we really should have gone here. But luckily, you get the same answer. We're going to plug in 5 for A and 3.2 for B. It's a negative 3.2. Now, order of operations says we're going to do exponents first. So negative 3.2 squared is 10.2. And it's a positive because negative times a negative is a positive. Anytime you're squaring a negative, you're always going to get a positive. Then inside that parentheses, it's negative 3.2 and a negative 5. Those are both negatives, so we add and get a negative 8.2. Order of operations says we're going to multiply, so we just keep bringing down the 5. We're going to multiply 10.24 times a negative 8.2, and we get a negative 83.96. Now we're going to either add or subtract whatever the signs tell us to do. The signs are different. That's a positive 5, and that's a negative 83.96. So we subtract and take the sign that goes to the larger number. So my answer is negative 78.968. Right now we don't round it. We leave it whatever decimal places it is. Example 2B, We're going to plug in negative 3 for x. And notice that x is negative 3, and we are putting x to the fourth power, so we have to include the negative in parentheses. Be very careful about that. It's just, the base is not 3, the base is negative 3. And we're going to plug in 4 for w and 5 for negative y. I'm going to change that positive to negative in just a minute. And then plug in negative 5 for y. And again, because it is a power and my base is negative 5, I have to enclose that in parentheses. Plus 2 times w is 4. Negative 3 to the fourth power. If your base is a negative and your exponent is an even number, then your answer is always going to be positive. If your base is a negative and your exponent is an odd number, then your answer would be negative. And in this case, my base is negative 3 and my exponent is an even number, so it is going to be a positive 81. Now I recopied and fixed that minus sign. So that would be right here, I got a positive 60. That's negative 3 times 4 times a negative 5. Negative 12 times a negative 5 is a positive 60. Then I go into the denominator, negative 5 to the third power. My base is negative. My exponent is an odd number. So my answer is going to be a negative. And 5 to the third power is a negative 125. Plus 2 times 4 is 8. Add the numerator, 81 plus 60 is 141. And in the denominator, negative 125 plus 8. My signs are different, so I'm going to subtract and get a negative 117. Now, I am not going to get a decimal answer for this. You could put it in the calculator as a decimal, but it was a fraction. The problem was the fraction, so let's leave it in a fraction form. First, that's a positive 141 divided by a negative 117. My answer is going to be a negative. I'm going to reduce that by 3. So my answer is negative 47 over positive 39. Okay, example C. We're going to plug in 4 for H and 5 for K. Or excuse me, it's 0.5. Order of operations says I'm going to do the exponents first. 4 squared is 16. Times the 0.5, we're going to bring that down. Plus 4 times 4 minus 0.5 is 3.5. Order of operations, I can multiply. I've got two sets of multiplication. 16 times 0.5 and 4 times 3.5. So I'm going to multiply 16 times 0.5 and get 8. And then I'm going to multiply 4 times 3.5 and get 14. Then I'm adding 8 plus 14 and I get 22. I'm going to plug in negative 1 for J. Plus 3 minus H is 4. And then I'm going to square it. Order of operations says I've got to do inside the parentheses. So bring down the negative 1. And inside the parentheses, 3 minus 4 is a negative 1. And then I'm squaring that. So I keep bringing down the negative 1. And I'm going to square. Negative 1 squared is a positive 1. Example E. J is negative 1, so that's negative 1 squared. Once again, if your base is a negative and you're multiplying it or squaring it, it needs to be in parentheses. Do not forget that. So we plugged in what our J, H, and K is. In the denominator, we plug in negative 1 for J, and again, it's to the third power. So once again, we have to close it in parentheses. Now, in the numerator, we got some cleaning up to do. We can do multiple steps. I am going to first square -1, and -1 squared is a +1. Then I've got to multiply 3 times 4 squared. What do I do first? Do I do 3 times 4 and then square it? Or do I square 4 and then multiply it times 3? Well, I am going to square 4. I am not squaring the 3. So multiplying 3 times 4 first would be wrong. You have to square 4 and get 16, and then multiply it times a -3 and get a -48, or we write it as a -48 times 0.5. In the denominator, -1 to the third power. My base is a negative, my exponent is an odd, therefore my answer is going to be a -1 plus 2. Now inside the numerator, I keep bringing down that 1 because my next step is to multiply -48 times 0.5. You have to remember the order of operations. So -48 times 0.5 is a -24. In the denominator, -1 plus 2 is +1. Back in the numerator, 1 minus 24 is a -3 over 1. Anytime you have the denominators of 1, you can just drop the denominator. So my final answer is -23. Example 3. Formula of a cone is 1/3 pi r squared h. It is used to find the formula of a tornado. Here's a picture of what a tornado will look like. Your radius is 75 meters. Your height is 225 meters. So I'm going to plug into the formula what my radius is, and I'm going to plug in my height. Order of operation says I'm going to square 75 first. And then I am going to multiply, and you can use a calculator for all this. I'm first going to multiply 5,625 times 225. Then I'm going to plug in 3.14 for pi. Multiplying by 1/3 is the same thing as dividing by 3. So I'm just going to plug all of this into the calculator and get 1,324,688 cubic meters. Your assignment is page 7, odd numbers, 11 through 23, 24, 25, and odd numbers 29 through 33, 37, and 50 through 53. I'm going to do a couple problems for you. You should try to do on your own and then look at my work and see if our work is the same. Now, there might be some steps that are a little different, but what matters is that our final answer is the same. Here's number 11. Because 1/3 does not give you an exact decimal, we cannot convert everything to decimal. You're either going to have to convert everything to fraction or everything to decimal. It definitely would be easier to do decimals. The only problem is that 1/3 is 0.333333, so we cannot go that route. So we have to use converting the decimals to fraction. 2.6 is the same thing as 2 6/10. I'm going to reduce 2 6/10 to 2 3/5 plus 4 minus 1/3. Now I'm going to go ahead and combine the 2 3/5 plus 4 and get 6 3/5 minus 1/3. Now, yes, you could put it in a common denominator and then subtract, but I know that when I do that, I am going to be borrowing. So the easiest route is to turn it into improper fraction first, then get a common denominator. So I'm going to turn that into 33 over 5. And the way to do that, you multiply 5 times 6 is 30. Add the numerator. That's 33 over 5 minus 1/3. I'm going to get a common denominator of 15. Rename my numerators. I had to multiply 5 by 3 to get 15, so I'm going to multiply 33 times 3 and get 99. I had to multiply, in the other denominator, I had to multiply 3 by 5, so I'm going to multiply 1 times 5. 99 minus 5 is 94 over 15. I'm going to go back and put that back into a mixed number. 15 goes to 94 6 times with 4 left over. So my answer is 6 4/15. Here's number 23. Now, you could have done this two ways. You could have cleaned up inside the numerator by getting a common denominator of 1/5 plus a negative 4. You'd have to turn the negative 4 over 1, get a common denominator of 5. But I saw that if I did the distributive property instead, that my denominator would go away. So I felt like that was the easiest route because 5 times 1/5, the 5's go away and you just get 1. And then multiply 5 times negative 4 and you get negative 20. You could have gotten a common denominator of 5. And you get negative 19 over 5, you still have a fraction. I found that what I did was a whole lot easier. Then do the denominator. 2 times negative 4 is a negative 8. Square negative 0.8 squared turns into a positive 64. My numerator turns into negative 19 over a negative 5.2, which is around 3.71. You need to check your answers in the back of the book, or all of your odd answers in the back of the book. I will have the answers to the even problems your next class day.